अष्टप्रयेषु भद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भागवते उत्तम श्लोके भक्तिर्भवतिर्नैष्टिकी ॐ ज्ञानतिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधार श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे मुखं करोति वाचालं पंगुं लङ्घयते गिरिं यत्कृपातमां वन्दे श्रीगुरुदीनतारुणं परमानन्दं माधवम् नमः ॐ विश्वदाय कृष्ण कृष्णाय भूतले श्रीमति भक्तिवेदांत स्वामी नामिने। So we'll resume with our discussion on the seventh chapter of the sixth canto in the Indra offenses, spiritual master Brihaspati. So in the last discussion, we had completed the first 10 verses, which was Indra's offense. Essentially, Indra was sitting in the court with all his opulences, being glorified by exalted devas like the Rudras and the Vasus and the Adityas. The Gandharvas and the Apsaras were singing and dancing. His wife Sachi was sitting on the throne along with him. At that time, Brihaspati enters, and Indra essentially does nothing. So, etiquette is when your spiritual master comes, offer obeisances, offer him a place to eat, to sit, offer him sweet words, offer him something to eat or drink. So, very similar to how the Vedas recommend how a grasta should honor a guest, but much more so, because the spiritual master has a position much higher than that of a guest. And we notice that Indra's offense was that of omission, not of commission. Right? So we said that how offenses could be by the body, mind, or by words, and they could be by commission or omission. And Indra's offense was really by omission of all three, body, mind, and words. So he omitted to speak sweetly to his spiritual master and welcome him. He omitted to fall on the ground and offer him obeisances. And he also omitted to offer respect to him internally. So the next 7 verses talk about Indra's lamentation. So we had done the 11th verse where Indra had immediately in front of everybody, he condemned himself. He says that because of my lack of intelligence, because of my pride in my material opulences, I insulted my spiritual master by failing to show respect to him. Right, and Indra then continues on this genuine lamentation. So let's go to verse 12. Ko krudyet pandito lakshmim tripstapa paterapi yayama suram bhavam nitodya vibhudeshwaraha. Although I am the king of the demigods. Right, so he says that he is the Vibhudeshwara. Ishvara means the Lord. Vibhu is the demigod. He says, although I am the king of demigods who are situated in the mode of goodness, I was proud of a little opulence and polluted by false ego. Under the circumstances, who in this world would accept such riches at the risk of falling down? Alas, I condemn my wealth and opulence. So we see here Indra is taking responsibility of his action. Right? So the devas are in the mode of goodness, and Indra, as the king of the deva, is exemplifying this quality of goodness. Right? So what is it that he is lamenting about? He says Aishwarya Matena. Right? So Aishwarya Matena is that being very proud of material opulence. Right? So Aishwarya Matena, uh, mind means the conception that you have. Aishwarya means the thinking of yourself to be very, very great. So the next thing he says is Dabra Buddhina, that being of less intelligence, and Asuram Bhavam. That Asuram Bhavam means that I'm polluted by false ego. Literally, it means demoniac mentality, but contextually, Prabhupada translate it as polluted by false ego. Now, we see that Indra does condemn the fact that he says that I condemn my wealth and opulence. But this is not Indra trying to shift blame. Because wealth and opulence, they are jad, right? They're not sentient. And he had already prefixed it by saying Aishwarya Matena. So essentially, he's condemning the wealth and opulence because of the impact that it had on his mind. Right? So this is the important point that is coming through, that Indra is not looking for any mitigants. Right? He is not saying that it's only my wealth and opulence that is responsible, not me. Right? Because he's saying, no, it is me being polluted by the conception of being the owner of this wealth and opulence. Dabra Buddhena. Aishwaryamatena. Right? Why is he polluted? Because he has less intelligence. Less intelligence in this context means lacking spiritual intelligence. Right? Not that he is saying that his material intelligence is limited, but the Prabhupada means that he is not able to appreciate the fine spiritual qualities. So in the 10th canto of the Bhagavatam, when Narad Muni curses the sons of Kuber, Nal, Kuber and Managriv, he notes the impact of wealth. And there also he says, now Nal, Kuber and Managriv were rich, but not as rich as their father. Because their wealth was essentially a reflection of their father's wealth. So if Narad Muni was to condemn the wealth, then he would also be condemning Kuber, who was a great devotee of Lord Shiva, an exalted personality. But Narad Muni does not condemn wealth, but he condemns the impact of wealth on people whose intelligence is not spiritually strong. We see the same thing in the Dwarka Leela. So there is the pastime of the Shamantaka jewel, where Satyajit, by the worship of the sun god, he gets the Samantaka jewel, which every day produced, I forget how much, but a lot of gold. And by that, Satyajit became very, very rich. And then Krishna, when he found out, he requested Satyajit to give the jewel to King Ugrasen so that it could be used for the welfare of the people. Now, can you imagine that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is coming and asking something, and something that can be given so easily? But Satyajit became so, his intelligence became so polluted that he refused Krishna and he became offensive towards Krishna. He became so offensive that later on, when his brother Prashena, so he gives the jewel to his brother Prashena that you take care of it. And then Prashena was going in the forest, and a bear, no, it's a lion. This a lion attacks him and kills him. So then he spreads the word around that Krishna had killed him and stolen the jewel. So we see how uh, uh, Satyajit, from being an associate of Krishna, he actually had a position of respect to from Krishna, because Krishna actually is his son-in-law. So from that position, he becomes so he becomes so fallen that he becomes offensive to Krishna. He starts spreading false rumors against Krishna. Why? Not because of the wealth per se, but because of how he considered himself to be the enjoyer of the wealth. Okay. So wealth in itself, and Prabhupada had this famous incident of where he was shown a picture of a sadhu, and there was a person with a plate full of cash in front of him, and the sadhu had his hands behind his back saying, "I don't want the money." And then the caption was that sadhu doesn't want anything to do with the money. And Prabhupada saw it and laughed, and he said, "I will take all the money and use it in Krishna's service." And that's the mood of the devotee. It's not the money, but how you deal with the with the with the money. But for the conditioned soul, it's a reality. That's why Kunti Devi, in the first canto, she calls Krishna as Akinchan Gochara. So Akinchan is that those who are devoid of any wealth, and Gochar is that they essentially are attracted to Krishna. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada compares the situation of Indra with that of America in terms of being very materially opulent, but also being bewildered by it. So he writes that if the American people are serious about curbing the degraded criminal life of the nation, they must take to Krishna conscious movement and try to create the kind of society advised in the Bhagavad Gita, Chaturvanyamaya Shreshta Gunakarma Vibhagasha. They must divide the society into first, second, third, and fourth class men. Since they are now creating only men who are less than fourth class, how can they avoid the dangers of a criminal society? Long, long ago, Lord Indra regretted his disrespect to his spiritual master, Brihaspati. Similarly, it is advised that the American people regret their mistaken advancement in civilization. They should take advice from the spiritual master. So actually, when Srila Prabhupada was in Chicago, then he got his disciples were constantly, and this was one of Prabhupada's ask was that if he was able to make the leaders Krishna conscious, then people would follow. So he would always try to meet with leaders. So in Chicago, he met with either, I think it was the chief of police in Chicago, and at that time, so this is in the early 70s, when all these organized crime and Al Capone and all these people were, there was a lot of, so in Chicago, there was a lot of focus on fighting crime. And then Prabhupada very boldly suggests to the chief of police that if you allow us to fight crime for you, then I can guarantee you that Chicago will become crime free. So the chief of police was a little bewildered that these are all religious people, spiritual people. He said, "How will you fight crime?" And then Prabhupada basically gave him a brief about the potency of chanting the holy name and how it cures everything from root. Now, he didn't take to it, of course, because if he had, things would have been different. But Prabhupada's vision was very much anchored on the teachings in the Bhagavad Gita and the Bhagavatam. And he was bold enough to present it with conviction, because the conviction was not his. The conviction came from his faith in the scriptures. Okay, let's move to verse 13. Yah param sthendhishnamadhisthana kanchan pratyutishted iti bruyar dharmam tena param vidu. If a person says one who is situated on the exalted throne of a king should not stand up to show the respect of another king or Brahman, it is to be understood that he does not know the superior religious principles. Now, Indra at this point, he's actually presenting an internal debate. Right? So why did he not stand up? Right? So in his mind, he has some reasons why he did not stand up. That he was attending a cultural event. He was the king in a very exalted throne, surrounded by his people. Maybe not the best place for the spiritual master to come, but he's now surfacing that, right? So in the Niti Shastra, it is mentioned that when the king is on the throne, then now in this case, it is Indra himself, but in the Niti Shastra is mentioned when the king is on the throne, he represents Indra. In some cases, it is said he represents Lord Vishnu. Right? Just like when they say that when a person is sitting on the Vyasthan, he represents Srila Vyasadeva. Right? So similarly, when the person is sitting, the king is on the throne, he's representing Indra or he's representing Vishnu. So everybody should give him respect rather than the other way around. Now Indra is saying that if he had thought like that, if he himself had thought like that, it was a mistake. That even if the person is Brahma or sitting on Brahma's throne, he should rise. So Romaharsan remained sitting when Balaram came because he was considering the Vedic injunctions. That the person is representing Vyasa, so there is no need for him to rise. But why was he killed by Lord Balaram? Because he was unable to discriminate on when to apply this injunction and when not to apply this injunction. Right? Now, when Sudama came to meet Krishna, Krishna was sitting on a golden throne with Rukmani. And Sudama was dressed in emaciated, dressed in dirty clothes, patched. But what does Krishna do? Immediately he gets up and he falls at the feet of Sudama. Even though Sudama is his friend, he makes Sudama sit on the throne. He gets water and himself washes the feet of Sudama, while Rukmani Devi fans him. Similarly, we see that when Narad Muni enters, or when the messenger Brahman sent by Rukmani appears, we see Krishna immediately gets up and offers obeisances. Right. So Prithu Maharaj, when he's glorifying in the four Kumars, this is in the fourth canto, he says that we are sitting on this throne because it has been given to us by the Brahmanas. So that's the position of the Brahmanas, and the position of a Guru is even above that of the Brahmana. So Prabhupada in the purport says that Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says in this regard that when a president or a king is sitting on his throne, he does not need to show respect to anyone who comes within the assembly, but he must show respect to superiors like spiritual master, Brahmanas and Vaishnavas. There are many examples on how he should act. And then he talks about Krishna and Narad Muni's position. So then he concludes by saying a society without Vedic laws and regulations will not be very helpful to humanity. As stated in this verse, Dharmam te param vidu. Such a society does not know the aim of life and the highest principle of religion. This is the last line of the word. Dharmam te param vidu. Tena, dharmam tena param vidu. Okay. Verse 40. Tesham kupata destranam patatam tamasi hayaddaha ye shraddadyor vachaste vai majante ashma plavaiva. Leaders have fallen into ignorance and who misled people by directing them to the path of the path of destruction, as described in the previous verse, are in effect boarding a stone boat. And so too are those who blindly follow them. A stone boat would be unable to float and would sink in the water with its passengers. Similarly, those who mislead people go to hell and their followers go with them. So Indra is continuing to reflect on the gravity of his offense. So earlier on, he was considering the impact of the offense on himself. Now he's expanding the impact of the offense. That not only is this impacting me, but it is impacting all those who follow me. So the very people for who I was proud, that, oh, this is my praja, they're all sitting glorifying me, I should not stand. I'm actually doing them a disservice because I did not stand, they did not stand. Because I disrespected my spiritual master, they disrespected their spiritual master. So my offense does not only stay till me, but it has also impacted all the Deva. So he compares himself to a stone boat, and he compares the other Devas to passengers sitting in that stone boat. And the Srila Prabhupada also brings attention to um, other references to the analogy of the boat, and I kind of expanded on this. So this is just interesting because the analogy of the boat comes more than once in the Srimad Bhagavatam. So I kind of looked at all the references. So in the 11th canto, Krishna tells Uddhav how the human body is like a perfectly constructed boat. The spiritual master is the captain. The instructions of the personality of Godhead are the favorable winds impelling it on its course. And then he says that one does not. So this is the ideal situation for the soul. But one who is not able to do it, he says, is killer of the soul. Then in the first canto, first chapter, verse 22, the sages, when they glorify Sutta Goswami, they say that we have met your goodness by the will of providence, just so that we may accept you as a captain of the ship for those who desire to cross the difficult ocean of Kali. Then in the 10th canto, 14th chapter, verse 58, this is praised by Lord Brahma, where he compares the Lord's lotus feet to a boat. And he says if one takes shelter of this boat, one can easily cross the ocean of nescience. Then in the first canto, 8th chapter, verse 34, Kunti Devi says that the world being overburdened like a boat at sea is much aggrieved. And then Brahma prayed for you to come and diminish the trouble. Then again in the first canto, 5th chapter, verse 14, Narad Muni says to Vyasadeva, so this is Narad Muni chastising Vyasadeva, that whatever you desire to describe that is separate from the vision of the Lord simply reacts with the different forms, names, and results to agitate the mind as the wind agitates a boat which has no resting place. Then later on, this is again Narad to Vyasadeva in the first canto, 6th chapter, verse 34. Narad Muni says, it is personally experienced by me that those who are always full of cares and anxieties, due to desiring contact of the senses with the objects, can cross the ocean of nescience on the most suitable boat, the constant chanting of the transcendental activities of the personality of Godhead. So we see that the boat is compared to the lotus feet of the Lord, the boat is compared to the spiritual master, the boat is compared to the human body, the boat is compared to the chanting of the holy name. In the Bhagavad Gita, second chapter, verse 67, Krishna says to Arjun that as a strong wind sweeps away a boat on the water, even one of the roaming senses on which the mind focuses can carry away the man's intelligence. So here the boat is compared to the man's intelligence. And there are many more references. I just picked a few that are famous. Okay, let's move on to verse 15. अथाहम् अमराचार्यम् अगाधिष्णं द्विजं प्रसाद्य शेनिष्ठः शीर्ष्णा तच्चरणं स्पर्शन. King Indra said, "Therefore, with great frankness and without duplicity, I shall now bow my head at the lotus feet of Brihaspati, the spiritual master of the demigods. Because he is in the mode of goodness, he is fully aware of all knowledge and is the best of the Brahmanas. Now I shall touch the lotus feet and offer my obeisances unto him to try to satisfy him." So we see Indra going through the stages of genuine repentance. So the first stage of repentance is clearly acknowledging your fault without any ambiguity. And so many times people say, "Well, if I made any offenses, I'm sorry." So the basis is missing. That sorry has no value. What are you sorry about? And so the first step in genuine repentance is clear acknowledgement of the offense. So Indra has done that, but he does not stay at that. So a person who just laments is a Shudra. But a person who understands what is worthy of lamentation and then tries to fix it is a Brahman. The Brahman is not perfect, but they are constantly trying to rectify their faults. So Indra, after having understood the fault that he made, is now coming up with a plan of action. So we see the stages of repentance. One is genuinely identifying and accepting the offense. And the second is sincerely acting to mitigate that. And the best form of mitigation is to beg forgiveness of the person that you have offended. Right? So it said that one commits a Vaishnava offense, one should immediately go to the Vaishnava and ask for forgiveness. And if the person still does not forgive, then there are different stages. Then you try to serve the Vaishnava, does not accept service, then mentally serve the Vaishnava. But in one way or the other, one should remediate that offense. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada gives references to establish the unique position of a guru. And that actually is a theme that Prabhupada, in the purport, it comes again and again where Prabhupada talks about why the guru is so important. Right? So duplicity in a disciple, how does that impact? Is that a duplicitous disciple will make a show of following guru without actually respecting and really following the instructions of the guru. So Prabhupada quotes the famous Sansardhava prayer, Yasa Prasada Bhagavad Prasado Yasa Prasadam Nagati Kotopi, that only by the mercy of the spiritual master, one is benedicted by the mercy of Krishna. And Prabhupada also quotes from Uddhav Gita that one should know Acharya as myself. So this is Krishna speaking to Uddhav. And never disrespect him anyway. One should not envy him. Think of him as an ordinary man, for he's a representative of all the demigods. Right? So we'll see this. I won't speak so much on it because it's more of a preaching point. But Srila Prabhupada will in the next set of verses repeatedly make this point about how important it is for one to have a strong, a nourishing, well-established relationship with the Guru, how one should avoid offending the Guru, how one should serve the Guru. Verse 16. Evam चिन्त्यतस्तस्य मघो नो भगवान् ग्रहात् बृहस्पतिर्गतो दृष्टं gatim adhyatma. While Indra, the king of the demigods, thought in this way and repented in his own assembly, Brahaspati, the most powerful spiritual master, understood his mind. Thus he became invisible to Indra and left home. For Brahaspati was spiritually more powerful than Indra. Right. So this is a so the activities of a guru are mysterious. You know, how the guru acts, only the guru knows. And so it says, for the Vaishnava, it says Vaishnava Buddha ki bujai, that who understands the activities of a Vaishnava, more so for a guru, because ultimately the guru, he has the grand picture in mind. He is creating opportunities for the disciples to make progress. Sometimes those opportunity is by forgiveness, and sometimes it is by withholding forgiveness. Sometimes it is by encouragement, and sometimes it is by chastisement. Right? So, so the guru may, sometimes the disciple will say, to me, I did this offense and he chastised me so much. But the other disciple did the same offense and the guru said, don't worry about it. Right? Exactly the same thing happened to Prabhupada. The disciples, one disciple complained that I made this and Prabhupada was so heavy on me. And the other person did this and Prabhupada said, oh, don't worry, you'll do it, you'll make better, you'll do better. This is not partiality. Because as a guru, Prabhupada knows what is best for this particular disciple. If the disciple is more advanced, they can absorb the chastisement and use it to make progress. If the disciple is a neophyte, or if the disciple is not secure in his position, then chastising the disciple would either cause the disciple to go away, or worse, it would generate animosity in the heart of the disciple. And ultimately, the guru will do whatever is needed for the disciple to make progress. So that's why it is said Brahaspati was spiritually more powerful than Indra. So he was spiritually guiding Indra. Also, now Indra had so many siddhis, right? He is the king of the demigods, but Brahaspati was even more powerful. So when Brahaspati became invisible, then Indra, with all his siddhis, he could not find Brahaspati. Okay, let's move to verse 17. Guruna digatah samgyam parikshan bhagavat swara dhyayan dhiya surer yukta sarmanala bitatmanaha. Although Indra searched vigorously with the assistance of the other demigods, he could not find Brahaspati. Then Indra thought, alas, my spiritual master has become dissatisfied with me, and now I have no means of achieving good fortune. Although Indra was surrounded by the demigods, he could not find peace of mind. So, two ways to understand this verse. One is the apparent meaning, that Brahaspati had gone, and Indra, with all his prowess, and he had so many demigods, he had Vayudev, he had Surya, who are essentially spread all over the universe, right? So it is said that everybody's actions are witnessed by the five demigods. So they are spread all over the universe, and all of them were under Indra's command. But he could not find the guru. The other way of understanding is that one cannot find one's guru by material methods. A guru is revealed by the mercy of Krishna and also by the mercy of Guru. They're ultimately the same. The mercy of Krishna is the mercy of Guru. Right? So and all of us who have initiated I've gone through this. And even though we are fortunate that Prabhupada created the society and there were opportunities and there were sannyasis, but ultimately, it's not possible to just. I know of at least one person devotee who was at one point he was when he was in the process of interested in initiation, he had made this kind of a table in which he was noting down the plus and minus of different sannyasis, right? And guess what? He was never able to get initiation. So he was looking at it from a material perspective. This guru does good kirtan. This guru is strong in the Vedas. This guru gives good classes. This guru is Western bodied. Now he didn't share the table with me, so I'm speculating on what he wrote, but he just shared that this is what he was doing. And even at that time, I felt that he was approaching it rather materially, because really speaking, we all got the mercy of a guru only because the not because of our material endeavor, but because some other Vaishnavas showed mercy, because Krishna showed mercy, the Guru showed mercy, right? So that point comes through in this verse, that Indra was searching for his Guru by material means and could not find him. Also, what we see here, that it is said that Indra was surrounded by demigods, but could not find peace of mind. What does it mean? That material opulence cannot give one peace of mind, right? So it talks about the superiority of spiritual peace to material happiness. So this is an important point in our day-to-day dealing also, that when we so there are people who go around disrespecting everybody, right? Not so here I'm not talking about devotees. I'm talking about people in general in the society. You know, there are people who in the shopping line, they will be rude to you. They will in your work environment, either because of your race or color or circumstances. But what we understand is that a person can only give what they have. So if the person is trying to make others miserable, then by extrapolation we can understand that how much misery the person is holding himself. If a person has a pot of poison, and if he's distributing poison, that means he's holding that pot of poison. And sometimes we think, oh, I should have. So I remember once that I was trying to park my car in the parking lot, and I think maybe I was a little absent-minded. So I was standing behind another car that was trying to pull out, right? And that person, he got so upset at me, and I must have been standing there for all of maybe 10 seconds. But that person got so upset at me that he pulled his car full on as if to hit me. And then just as soon as it came close to me, then he braked. And of course, I was very I was very startled, right? And then he opened the door and he said, "You can't just stand like this," whatever he said. And then he sat in the car and he went off. And for a while, I felt bad about it. That year, I was just happily going my way. And even though maybe I was responsible for it in some way, but the kind of things he said to me and what he did was in no way proportionate. And then I started thinking that when this person is distributing so much of negativity and anger, one can only imagine how much he is holding in himself. As far as I was concerned, it was a 30-second transaction, and then within a few minutes I forgot about it. But this person is going through life holding on to that. Every day morning he gets up, he holds on to this poison of misery, and he carries with him throughout the day. Whenever he gets an opportunity, he gives it out, but he carries the pot with him. He goes to bed with it, and then next day morning, and that's his life. So then you feel so much of sympathy for them. So how much more so when somebody is displeasing a Vaishnav? And how much so when that Vaishnav happens to be a guru? Right? So Indra is thinking along those lines. That how can I find peace of mind when I'm holding this pot of poison in my hand? Even though I'm surrounded by demigods are mode of goodness. They are representing material opulence. That I'm surrounded by all this material opulence. That I might go to bed on a bed that is made of silken sheets being fanned by charmers. But ultimately I go to bed carrying this pot of poison with me. So where can I find the peace of mind? Right. Now, the third point that comes in this verse is timing. So it is said that when one offends somebody, one should immediately beg for forgiveness. So when Brahaspati came into the court and Indra did not stand up, he had begun to realize his offense, but he did not do anything. If he had immediately stood up and begged forgiveness, everything would have been okay. Right. So we see in the fourth canto that when Suruchi was insulting Dhruva, then Maharaj Utanpad, he stayed silent. When Dhruva went, then he repented. But it was too late by then. If he had immediately corrected Suruchi, if he had immediately pacified Dhruva, then the situation would have been different. Now for Dhruva, it turned out, everybody turned out fine because Dhruva took shelter of Lord Vishnu. But just if you look at that situation, because Maharaj Utanpad did not act immediately, the situation spiraled to something much worse. So all our sadhana should also train us to act appropriately at the right time. And so when athletes they practice in a sport, they develop what is called muscle memory, right? Because they have to act so quickly, they cannot wait for the brain to process the signal and take corrective action. So by continuous practice, their muscles are trained to react. And this is actually a biological fact that if the nerves are the nerves that go to the spinal cord, they themselves, it's like we have this experience: you touch something hot, and even before you know it is hot, your hand pulls back. There's a small, very small, but it's a perceptible delay that your hand pulls back and then your hand begins to burn. Right. So this is where the brain doesn't get involved, but the nerves detect the heat and they take the action, and then the brain recognizes the heat. So when the athletes are practicing over and over again, they're practicing to act quickly at the right time. And that's what the devotees are also practicing, that they act appropriately at the right time. Guru comes, they give obeisances, right? So it becomes muscle memory, so to speak, spiritual muscle memory. And this case, right? They inadvertently offend somebody, immediately beg for, feel genuine regret and beg for forgiveness. They see the deities of the Lord, they immediately give obeisance. So this is what, so just like the athletes their sadhana is building the muscle memory to play a sport. The devotee sadhana is to build our spiritual muscle memory so that we perfect our spirituality. Okay, let's move on to the next verse. So with this verse, we see this is the end of Indra's regret, right? And we see the qualities of regret in Indra. We see his genuine repentance. We see his desire to quickly um, rectify, and we also see the consequence of Guru Aparadh. So let's move to verse 18. Tashutveshvasuraha sarva ashritya shunashanmatam devan pratyudamam chakrur durmada atatayayanaha. Hearing the pitiable condition of King Indra, the demons followed the instructions of their guru, Shukracharya, equipped themselves with weapons and declared war against the demigods. So in 3 verses, 18 to 20, we see that the demons are attacking the devas who approach Lord Brahma. So Shukracharya was himself a guru. So he was aware of the disastrous consequences of willful disrespect of guru. Right? So he understood that without the shelter of the guru. Now Brahaspati does not fight on behalf of the devas. He never enters the battlefield. But he provides the spiritual sustenance. So Shukracharya understood that without the shelter of the guru, the devas are vulnerable. Now, the other thing is that we have seen that the offense was done individually by Indra and collectively because the other devas also did not show respect, right? So Indra, in his position as the leader, is holding himself more accountable. So that is why Sukadeva Goswami is saying that hearing the pitiable condition of the King Indra. Right. So quality of a true leader, that they hold themselves more accountable. Now, in this case, Indra did the offense, but even if an offense is done by the followers, the leader holds himself responsible. Right? In Dwarka Leela of Krishna, the Brahmana would come and chastise Ugrasen, saying that you're a nonsense king because his sons were dying, right? And he says that I am your praja. It's your responsibility to protect me. It's your responsibility to protect my children because they're dying. You're a bad king. And Ugrasen accepted that. So we see that how Indra is holding himself, or Sukadeva is reflecting how Indra is holding himself accountable for the actions. Verse 20. Tam tatha bayartan vikshya bhagwanatmabhurajah kripya prayadeva uvacha parishantavyan. When the most powerful Lord Brahma saw the demigods coming towards him, their bodies gravely injured by the arrows of demons, he pacified them by his great causeless mercy and spoke as follows. Right. So, giving in summary that the asuras attracted the devas, the asuras won, the devas' bodies were gravely injured by the arrows of the demons, and they went to Lord Brahma to take shelter of him. And then we see Lord Brahma's action. So while Indra's action towards Brahaspati was not appropriate, his repentance is genuine, which is why we see that Brahma is still merciful on him. He will chastise him, but he is still merciful on him. And so while offenses may happen, if the repentance is genuine, then the mercy of the Vaishnavas will still be there. It may not be coming through Brihaspati, but it is coming through Brahma. Then we also see the mood of Indra, that earlier on he had taken the shelter of Brihaspati. That shelter being withdrawn, now he is taking shelter of Brahma, who's Brihaspati's guru, right? So this mood of taking shelter, quality of the devas, quality of mode of goodness, not to act independently. When take shelter of a guru means one takes shelter of the Shastras. One takes shelter of Krishna. So this mood of deriving protection from shelter we see in Indra. So in the verse, Brahma is called Bhagavan to talk about his exalted position, and is called Kripiya, and he is described as Kripiya Paraya, as having great causeless mercy. So Sukadeva Goswami is noting that despite the fact that Indra repented, he should not have been God. He should not have been given mercy. But because Brahma is such an exalted soul, and because his mercy is causeless, if his mercy was causal, then he would have denied Indra mercy. Indra came, he said, no, you already offended one guru, now you're coming to me, you'll offend me also, go away. But Brahma is described as Kripiya Paraya, that his mercy is causeless. He was aware of the offenses of Indra towards his guru, still extends his mercy on him. Okay, so the next verse begins a new section, which is Brahma's conversation with Indra, and this we will do in our next discussion. I'll stop over here and see if there is any points of discussion.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Very interesting analogy about the boat, and it appears so many places and different places. Very nice. I don't know if you can share this with us later.
Share what with you, Prabhu? I'm sorry.
The references for the boat analogy.
Okay, Prabhu. I'll send to Prem. I'll send to Prem Kishore, Prabhu.
Thank you.
So also, Prabhu, the Kripeya Paraya, what you just said, is it only from the Guru we get it? It may be from any Vaishnava as well, right? So
Yes, you're right. Because Brahma's position is more, even though Indra is approaching him as a guru, but Brahma's position is more of a Vaishnava, right? He's an exalted Vaishnava, and with that mode, is going. It's the nature of the Vaishnavas.
Prabhu, when you were discussing about that, I was thinking about bhakti. How somebody get bhakti, and we say that bhakti is given by Vaishnava, somebody who carry bhakti. I mean, the mercy of Guru is a bit like that, no? Also.
Yes. Excellent point.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much for the deep and insightful discussion this evening on the guru-disciple relationship. I'm reflecting on this point that you were making, that the duplicious disciple makes a show of devotion to the guru, and I'm thinking about an example in my in my personal interaction with my spiritual master, I would usually not do, let's say, direct service to him, but from a distance. I do different things, but I'll go visit him one time a year and do personal service for him. And I remember one morning, personal means intimate service, dress him, bathe him, comb his hair and everything. And his health is not doing so well. So one morning he called me and said to me that I should be, he related the story of Madhavendra Puri and Ishwar Puri, and said to me that, at this stage of his life, I should be doing intimate service to him, continue, sort of continuously. And I begin to, I thought I did, great wrong by just trying to give an explanation why I cannot. And, I feel all the time that I am sort of like not obeying. After I left, I always feel that I'm not obeying his order, right? Although I might be doing so many wonderful things, which he's pleased with in terms of like services in ISKCON, this, that, and the other. So how would you explain that, based on the discussion we have here this evening?
Thank you, Prabhu. So I can share some of my own realizations, as definitely I'm not able not in a position to comment on the specific situation you're describing. From a practical perspective, the disciples are never able to follow the instructions of the Guru in their entirety, right? So that's why you'll see some of the more senior disciples of Prabhupada, you ask them, are you a disciple of Prabhupada? And then they'll say with genuine humility, still trying to be a disciple. Right? So the point they're making is they're still trying to follow the instructions of the spiritual master. That's the characteristic of one who is at the stage of sadhana bhakti, that the glory is in trying, not so much in perfecting. If you perfect, then you're at a different stage. I can relate to the point you made that there are different instructions given by the spiritual master that we are not able to follow to the extent that he would like us to follow, which is lamentable, and it is right for us to lament upon it. But the glory is in trying to do a little better, and that's where the spiritual masters give us the instructions to get to. They always give us something that is outside our comfort zone, that keeps us in the stretch zone, and the stretch zone is that you'll be able to do some of it, and a little bit more, and a little bit more. The other point, of course, is that the instructions of the spiritual master are always accompanied by few things. They're accompanied by an acknowledgement of the disciples' advancement, right? So to one person, at one point when we were talking to Prabhupada Maharaj about, at that time my son was 5 years old, and we were saying the schools here are this and that, and then Prabhupada Maharaj said that you send him to the Vrindavan Gurukul. And my wife and I were both shocked. We couldn't say anything because it would be a life-changing decision, right? So then next day we went back to him. He was living in our house that next day we went back to him and we said that, he's just 5 years old. He can't live on his own. And Maharaj said, not a problem, ask Indulekha to go with him also. So then one day we thought about it, and then basically Indulekha was happy that I'll go to Vrindavan and live with Dhruv. I wasn't very happy because I would be living alone over here. So then we went the third day back to Guru Maharaj and said that, difficult for us to follow that instruction. And then Maharaj said, okay, that's fine. And then he gave us some other thing that if you could send him to school, then have some compensating control, think about homeschoolings, etc. And then just before we were getting up, we said to Maharaj that I'm really sorry we couldn't follow instruction. And the Maharaj said, it was guidance, it's not instruction. And if I give you an instruction, then you'll know I'm giving you an instruction. So, and then he went on to say that, not following the instruction of a spiritual master can end a disciple's spiritual life. So a guru will never give an instruction to a disciple that can put his spiritual life in jeopardy, because it defeats the purpose of the whole relationship. The guidance, however, is, I think Maharaj, the exact words he said is that the guidance from the spiritual master should be looked upon with sufficient gravity. Which means that you should think about it and then basically act upon it. It made us feel a little better, but also a little guilty, because we knew that what the heart of the spiritual master was, that he wanted him to be sent to Vrindavan. We didn't follow that. But we did try and incorporate the other suggestions that Maharaj had given in terms of his schooling in the Western country. So just sharing with you, Prabhu.
Thank you so much. That was like, I thought what you said there meant a lot in giving me some kind of a solace, because it was something that was resting on my mind, for a long time, but I'm not able to, to comply. So thank you for that. Give you a little overtime, but just one other little point. In terms of Ramapal Maharaj also, he started visiting here in the year 2000, and many devotees wanted to become his disciples. So he made a policy, a public announcement that he will only take disciples here if I make a commitment to give shiksha, because he doesn't live here like he lived in the United States, where devotees could have his association, on a regular basis. So it was like, a decision, that I had to make, which will depend on, will depend whether he takes disciples or not. And I just said, yes, I'll do it. And then over the years, he took dozens of disciples, and it worked out well. But in recent times, he has, I felt I have not been able to do justice to that commitment I made to him, to the point where, not from my standpoint so much, but administration and like that, he stopped coming for the last 4 or 5 years, and then I'm feeling that sort of a guilt that I am not reaching to the mark that he expected of me. So that's another thing also, because sometimes, based on the discussion again this evening about the spiritual the relationship between the guru and disciple is like the active principle in spiritual life. So I was just like reflecting on these, 2 incidents, how important is it, and sometimes it plays on your mind whether you're pleasing him or not. Anyway, I just want to share that. I don't
It
know.
does. It does play on your mind. Thank you so much for sharing, Prabhu. Any other questions, comments? Okay, if not, then we can end here. वाञ्छकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्यैव च पतितनां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। अनंत कोटि वैष्णववृंद की जय, शिला प्रभुपाद की जय, थाई गौर प्रेमानंद, हरि हरि। Hare Krishna. Thank you so much.